Welcome to Wisdom Talk Radio, a collaborative community of explorers in conscious living. Surrender is at the essence of how I live and what I teach. But, that doesn't make it easy for me. And, you teach what you need to learn, which is what a dear teacher often said. The most profound changes and miracles in my own life have come through my own surrender. And that continues to this day. And I notice that because twice each week, not that these are the only times I surrender, believe me, I come together with people for Turaya Meditation. And before we go into the meditation time, I do a talk, giving a teaching for that day. And I never know what it will be, but I tune in before I start the meditation time. And really, I'm speaking in the moment because I'm needing to surrender to what is needed and what is being given to me that day. As we're going to explore today, but it's something that's so profound to me is that surrendering to one's own inner guidance is an act of courage and of love. Welcome to Wisdom Talk Radio. I'm Laurie Seymour, host of Wisdom Talk Radio and CEO and founder of the Baca Institute, which is home of the quantum connection process. You can head there to the Baca Institute to discover your own unique connection with your quantum connection essence, your own style, by taking the quiz that's there. Because we're each designed to connect directly with Source differently, uniquely in our own way. And knowing your own style opens that deeper connection with the universe and with that source of wisdom. Really, it's the secret to creating what you want, what you truly want in your life. Because who you are is exactly who is needed. My guest today is Kute Blackson. He is a transformational teacher, speaker, visionary, guide, and national best-selling author of 2 books, You.Are.The.One and The Magic of Surrender. That's why I'm talking about surrender. He's winner of the 2019 Unity New Thought Walden Award, and he is considered a next-generation leader in the field of personal development. His mission is simple and profound, I will add, to awaken and inspire people across the planet to access inner freedom, to live authentically, and fulfill their true life's purpose. Welcome, Kute, to Wisdom Talk Radio. I'm really glad you're here.
Thanks for having me.
So we could begin in all sorts of different places, but maybe we should just begin with, how does one begin to surrender for the way in which you think about it? Where do you start?
Yeah, I think we have to just even set the context so that we can all be in sync in the conversation together on, well, what is surrender? Because when we say surrender, what I think of as surrender and what someone else might think of as surrender, or what our culture has traditionally thought of as surrender, is there's so many misconceptions about surrender. Mm-hmm. And it's something that maybe on the spiritual path we've heard about. We have a sense of, I should surrender, but we don't. I should surrender, but we resist it. And so we can get into why that is as well. And so I would just say, with all the misconceptions of surrender, this idea that surrender is weak, that surrender is passive, that surrender is waving the white flag, that surrender is giving up, that if you surrender, you're going to be a doormat, you're going to be a victim, you're going to be taken advantage of, you'll be left behind, you won't manifest your goals, your dreams, your desires. If you surrender, you're going to get less in life. And so with these ideas about surrender, it's like, who would want to surrender? It doesn't sound very inviting or exciting or inspiring, And so I think we resist in so many ways. And so to me, I say, if you really understood the real essence of surrender, what if you didn't get less in life, but what if you actually got more? more than you could have imagined, more than you could have planned, more than you could have visualized, more than you could have written in your journal, more than you could have intended with your limited ego's capacity to imagine what was possible for your life. And so I believe that real surrender, which we'll get into, is the most powerful thing that we can do. For me, it is the process of life itself. It's the purpose of life itself. Real surrender is the real secret to manifestation. Real surrender is, if you look at the great ones, Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Muhammad, Martin Luther King, Mandela, who else? Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali, in their own ways, right? They all surrendered themselves to life, to their souls, to that purpose that was bigger than themselves, to the universe, to the divine, to the deepest truth inside of them. In that surrender, they all transcended their human limitations. And I think they tapped into another dimension of life and potential of life. And that's when life was able to use them and express through them and live them. And that's when many miracles happened through them, because it wasn't them that was doing it of their own limited selves. Exactly. It was life that was flowing through them. And I think that's where the magic happens. And so surrender is it's a letting go of control, just so that we can kind of have a conversation. It's a letting go of control. It's a letting go of the illusion that we are in control, really.
Right. It's a letting go also of our expectations. It's a letting go of how we think things are supposed to be, or could be.
Yeah, it's a letting go of who we think we should be, who we think other people should be. It's when we stop trying to force and manipulate life to fit our limited idea of how we think it should be, so that we can be available and open. It's a taking the limitations off of life, so that we can be available, open, to allow life in its intelligence to show you, to allow life in its magic and intelligence to reveal itself. And I think that's the possibility of surrender. And so the old paradigm, I think, in how we've been conditioned is the ego-based model of living life, which is about like,
we've been educated, we've been taught, we've been, you have to push, you have to struggle.
Yes. Know what you want, get clear on what you want. What do you want? And the thing is, you can manifest that way.
Yes.
You can. And you can manifest great things, but often it will still be limited, because the ego, which we can also get into, the ego, that which we kind of believe ourselves to be and have become so identified with, is in and of itself limited and conditioned. And so you might achieve what you thought you wanted, only to realize that what you thought you wanted was just what you thought you wanted, based on who you thought you were. And those goals and dreams were kind of projections, of the unmet needs of the ego. And then you don't feel truly happy. And so in surrender, to me, it's asking a different question, not just what do I want, because who is this I? What do I want is a limited question. It's asking a question of like, what is it that life is seeking to express to me? What is my soul seeking to manifest? What is the deepest impulse of my being, my truth, seeking to express and to feel that, to attune to that, to be still and listen and align with that? Then you can bring your ego and your mind and your humanity and your person in sync.
That's how we're going to create. But so you bring up something that's so powerful and so important, I believe. And because so much has been written about, talked about manifestation. Okay. And yet there's a limited quality to that when we aim to manifest something in particular. And because there's something of doing that says to the universe, well, this is my picture, and I think it's really, really big, but I'm not opening to your picture of how you life itself, it's not a you, but how life wishes to really make itself known and manifest through me.
I think we can want to manifest something particular. I don't know if that's the issue, because you might have.
No, that's not what I mean.
You might capture a vision for yourself, for your life, for your book, or for something, and it kind of emerges. It's like, oh, this particular thing, and so you can go after that and give 100%. It's that we get so attached to that particular thing,
Right.
which is what I think you're trying to say. You know,
I
what you
am.
said. If we
It's
get so
also we get
attached.
attached to the way in which it's supposed to happen because I was given this, especially with inspiration.
Yeah.
Oh, I was inspired. Great. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have to keep tuning into that, it seems to me, to adjust, to pivot, to refine. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's the attachment that is the suffering. It's when we get so attached to the idea, to the relationship, to the person, to the thing, we hold so tightly that we're no longer available. We're no longer open. We're no longer receptive to life's guiding us, when the truth is sometimes our goals are really evolutionary in nature. The goal that you have is kind of an evolutionary carrot that makes you go in a direction. And we get so attached to it's the thing, but it was really the journey that we had to go on in order to grow and evolve and learn the lessons. That goal that we thought was the goal was not really the goal. It was just the evolutionary trajectory that we need in order to grow and become the person that was capable of the real thing. But we're not able to see the real thing because we're so focused on the goal, when the real thing is really out to the right or beyond our current ego's capacity to even imagine. Many of our goals and dreams are beyond our current level of consciousness and capacity to imagine. And so we just want what we want rather than staying open and available. So surrender is the availability. It's the openness. That's why I say it's the openness to allowing life to show us. And I think that's when the magic happens.
I love it. Surrender is availability.
Yeah.
So I want to ask this question. It's probably a question that you get, but I feel like it's maybe coming from a different place. I'm not sure. And this is not meant, I don't mean to offend you. You're young. No. You're young, okay, compared to me. So how have you come to this place? Because I feel like this is really deep wisdom. How have you come to this place of understanding this about availability, about freedom, about surrender, that you speak with inner knowing? And
I don't speak from theory of reading.
No. I mean, I
speak from just my own life experience and sharing. Like, I know surrender works because I've lived it. And so I'll just, in a nutshell, share just a bit about my background and then maybe and what inspired the book. From a very young age, I was born in Ghana, West Africa. My father's from Ghana, my mother's Japanese. But from a very young age, my first memories were two things. I always felt a deep calling to help people. Like, I would feel people suffering very deeply, and I wanted to alleviate that suffering. I was 6 years old, 7 years old. And so I felt very connected to people. And, my first memories as a young boy, I remember being lost in the crowd, thousands of people. And I saw a crippled woman crawling, literally crippled. This is in Ghana, crawling on the floor. And she picks up the sand, the gravel that this man walks on, wipes it on her face and stands up. And so week after week, I grew up seeing blind people see and deaf people hear and people stand up out of wheelchairs. The same man whose hand she picked up will look at a woman in a wheelchair and say, "Why are you in this wheelchair? Stand up." And she was, "But I haven't walked in, 10 years. Do you believe? There's a power inside of you. Stand up." And so this man was my father. And he built 300 churches in Ghana, West Africa, a huge church in London, was actually very spiritual and mystical man. Went to India in the 60s and had kind of enlightenment experience. So I grew up in this environment where my mother was Buddhist and my father was a Christian mystic, so to speak. And so I grew up in this context where it was normal to me.
The extraordinary was ordinary.
and the sense of surrender and trusting life was really normal. At age 8, I started speaking in my father's churches. He threw me in the audience. And at 14, I was ordained. And I would say one of my conscious first experiences of surrender was I was ordained at 14. I knew that was not my path. I was supposed to be my father's successor, but I was too afraid. I was 14. Deep wisdom, but I'm a kid, And so my fear was if I spoke my truth to my father, I would be abandoned. I would lose the relationship. So for 4 years, I tried to be who I thought I needed to be in order to be loved and validated and get my father's approval. But when I turned 18, I felt something deeper calling me.
Yeah.
I looked into my future and I saw that I could take over his church. I could be successful by the world standards, but if I didn't have myself and if I didn't have my soul, what do I have? And I felt this deep, unexplainable for a 17, 18-year-old kid, this unexplainable pull to come to the US, to come to America, to come to California. Because when I would read, as a kid, I grew up reading, 700 self-help books until I was 18. And all of the modern day authors, Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, Deepak Chopra, they lived in San Diego, Los Angeles, Southern California. So for me, this was the Mecca. And so my soul said, go to Los Angeles. Sometimes what your soul guides you to do doesn't make sense to your logic.
I understand.
It's not always convenient. So I said, okay. And long story short, I had the conversation with my father. I mean, this was radical surrender for me. I renounced everything. Everybody was mad. I had the conversation with my father. We didn't speak. I let go of what I thought was, to just embrace what could be and what I felt. But I didn't know what it would look like. And so,
of course not. That's really is that courageous vulnerability.
That's surrender. And so, I ended up, kid with no money, no education. I ended up winning a green card in the green card lottery. And that's what enabled me to come to the US with 2 suitcases, $800 in my pocket. And I began a journey in LA, not knowing one person and simply living life, trusting my intuition and trusting guidance. And it was hard and it was difficult. And there was sometimes a question, but through the process of living and seeing how life had a way of unfolding in ways that I couldn't imagine, the best things in my life that I didn't even plan, and things I thought weren't. And just through the process of life, I began to trust. I began to surrender in some very difficult. I was homeless. I was broke. I mean, the list goes on. And in 2016, I think everything came full circle when my mother was diagnosed with stomach cancer. And she was the person I loved the most. I had just got off the Larry King show. He was an idol of mine. The next day, I get this phone call. Your mother has stomach cancer. Life has a way of humbling you. And I began flying back and forth from LA to London. My mother lived in London, literally every month for a week to be with her in her chemo sessions. And I would just sit with her and hold her hand. And we would just talk about life and nothing. And it was the first time in years since I was a kid that I got to just be with my mom. And it was so magical and profound that I thought, wow, why did I wait till she was dying to have this moment? Then the doctor said, and I think this is where the seed for the book was planted. The doctors basically said to us, get your affairs in order, to my mother, because, you're going to die. Could be days, weeks. It's not years, but it's months. So prepare yourself. I looked my mother in the eyes and I said 2 things. Number 1, are you afraid? And she said, I'm not afraid. She looked me back and said, I'm not afraid because I know I'm not this body. And this body is really a temporary vehicle for my soul. And so when I'm gone, I will be with you, guiding you from the other side. And even when she passed away, I saw so many miraculous unfoldings happen that I cannot explain. And then I looked my mother in the eyes and I said, what can I do for you as your son in your final days? Because I felt like I loved my mother, but then I realized, like, the only regret I had in that moment was not spending more time with my mom. And I thought, I want to be a good son in these final days. And I said, what can I do for you? What can I buy for you? Where do you want to go? And she said to me something that really changed my life. She said to me, there's nothing I want. There's nothing I need. All I want is what God wants for my life. And the simplicity of that statement hit me because I saw this little Japanese woman, my mom, this whole year of suffering. She went from healthy and vibrant to skinny and hair falling out and gaunt. And I'm like, my God, she's dying. Never once complained. Never once cursed life and God and felt like a victim. Truly joyous. And I saw that she wasn't attached to life. She wasn't attached to living. She wasn't attached to dying or resisting. She was just surrendered to the highest unfolding for her soul. And I saw in that moment, in the face of her mortality, the password to her freedom was that she was surrendered. And that's when I saw once again the power of surrender, and so my life, there's been so many experiences and stories I could tell you gladly of moments when I thought, I had another experience when COVID hit and all hell broke loose, and I ended up moving from LA, which I was so mad at the universe for, and I ended up going to Phoenix, which I had a house there, but I didn't want to live in Phoenix. Then I moved from Phoenix to Miami. Like, I didn't want to. Why the hell am I doing this? Was guided to sell my house in Phoenix, moved to Miami. Long story short, ended up receiving the inner guidance while I was in Miami, because I was thinking about, now I'm in Miami, I'm close to Latin America. Let me travel there. This inner guidance, I kid you not, this inner guidance, Laurie said, go to Brazil. I was in Egypt doing an event. Go to Brazil. What? Surrender. I surrendered to it.
No, this is so not unfamiliar to me. It's so
yes, right. I surrendered to it. I went to Brazil.
You don't know.
You don't know. Doesn't make sense to your mind, because that deeper intuition is coming from a deeper dimension than your logic, than your personality.
Yes.
Long story short, I ended up going to Brazil. Within 6 days, I met the woman that would be my wife. Met the woman that would be my wife, the love of my life. Now I have a child. Surrender. And so I've seen in the moments where literally with no net, things make no sense, and just following that, because it's also come through many experiences of not listening, not trusting, not listening, and then hitting my head against the wall, falling down, breaking my neck metaphorically, and going, this is so painful, that eventually the pain wasn't worth it. The pain of not listening, the consequence of not listening to that inner guidance it was no longer worth it. And so through a lot of pain, and shall I say, ass kicking from the universe, I just finally said, you know what? Let me surrender. And that was how I began to trust. Here's the thing. All of us as human beings, if we think about it, we're having this conversation. You're here, I'm here, everyone listening here, we're breathing. We're not sitting here going, breathe, breathe, breathe. It's just happening. We ate food this morning. There's an intelligence that is digesting. I had a smoothie. There's an intelligence that's digesting the smoothie. It's like, how is it that my hand doesn't turn into a smoothie?
You don't need a PhD in biochemistry to tell the gases where to go.
So what is this intelligence? It's you. It's me. It is what is living 8 billion people. It is what is functioning, the sun, the star, the moon. And so in a certain way, how do we not trust? How do we not surrender? Every day the sun shines, every day the moon's there, every day oxygen. It's like life is giving us proof in so many ways.
Wouldn't we be foolish to not trust, to not
trust? We trust Siri more than we trust our soul, more than we trust the divine. Siri says, turn left. We turn left. We don't question. Turn right. We turn right. But the moment we feel that inner guidance.
Right. Well, and I have people actually practice that, to pick a spot on the map and then pay attention to your inner guidance. Tune in. See, do I turn right here or do I turn left? And see how it is to start to learn how to follow that which we are all given. We all have that. We don't need Siri.
We have an inner Siri.
We have an inner Siri, exactly. An inner GPS. Yeah.
So through a lot of pain in life, through a lot of heartbreak of not listening, I think that started orienting me to listening. And then I started seeing life show me, life show me, life show me, life show me. And that's what gave me more and more courage to just surrender.
So, but it's not, or maybe it is. Maybe I should ask it rather than state it. To me, it's not a one and done. In other words, now I surrender, now I trust. Now, my teacher was like that. She trusted from such an early age, and she could hear that guidance, and her life was a series of magic and miracles. And I strive for that, or I intend for that.
The process of life is life.
And then in a moment I forget. In a moment I doubt. And when I feel that doubt, it doesn't feel good. It actually feels pretty awful.
Yes.
And if I override, it feels pretty awful because I
Yeah.
see that the effect of that.
Yes.
And yeah, can you speak to that? You know, that what that is for you, that it's not okay, now I've learned how to surrender and, here I am.
Yeah, I think it's a process of life, a process of listening. Like, I tell people, you don't have to know where you're going in order to get to where you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to be like, oh, I surrender fully. But all you have to do is just take a step.
Yeah.
Just take a step. Just take another step. Just what I had to learn from my own experience was I learned to stop questioning this intuition. Sometimes the intuitive kind of sense doesn't always come as like a loud siren bell, like
Right.
follow the sign to the left. Sometimes it's just
Mm-hmm.
a very subtle sensation in your body, like
Mm-hmm.
something's off here, or
Yeah.
it's a very subtle thing. Stay away from this person, but we don't listen. The mind questions, or go to Brazil, go to Miami, go, and we.
I can't afford that. I
But why?
can't do that.
But why? Call Laurie. But why? I haven't spoken. Just call. So what I had to learn was when I feel that sense of, so there's a sense, there's a
Mm-hmm.
frequency. I got to the point where I just stopped questioning. I stopped needing to know why and analyze and what it meant. See, the
Mm-hmm.
ego is constantly trying to understand what something is
I
in
want to
order
know.
to control, because we think if I can know and control, if I can know what something is, then I can be in control. If I can be in control, then I won't get hurt again. Because
Exactly.
if I
Yeah.
don't
It's
know, then
better
I'm going to go
it's
into the
safety.
unknown, and some
Mm-hmm.
bad things might happen. I don't want bad things to happen. So what does this mean? And why is this happening? And how do I make this happen? And so I just had to learn. And I would invite people, you don't need to understand what something is, but just follow it. Literally, turn left. People ask me, why are you turning left? I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
We have to give up the need to know. We have to give up the need to look good and the need
Well,
to
that's
seem intelligent.
the key piece,
Right.
because I
Yes.
grew up having to know, having to control. I didn't think about it as control, of course, but certainly what was acknowledged about me was not my intuitive sense, not my inner
Yes.
wisdom, but how smart I was.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, okay, if that's how I get the accolades, I'll do that. But that
Yes.
left me feeling so empty, so alone, really.
Mm-hmm.
And this other place of trusting guidance, of knowing that there is
Yes.
this inner presence,
Yes.
means I'm never alone.
Yes. And I'm going to give an example that I think will be very direct for people. It's
Okay.
a very direct example that I'm going to prove that we all have it. I'm going to prove that we've all surrendered. And I'm going to prove in the next minute that it's what we all want. Because some people might be thinking, this sounds great, Laurie and Kute having this conversation, they're spiritual folk. You don't even have to be spiritual.
Right.
If you think about your most beautiful, doesn't have to be the most beautiful either. You think about a beautiful sexual encounter.
Mm-hmm.
You think about a beautiful love-making exchange that you've had with your lover, with your husband, with your spouse, with that person, and kissing, love-making, exchanging, sharing energies together. If you just, everyone, think about the most beautiful or a beautiful moment, was it because you came to the lovemaking, you came to the bedroom, you came to the lovemaking encounter with an iPad full of strategy? Okay, a business plan for the next encounter. Okay, honey, I want you to lie on the bed, exactly 90 centimeters off the bed. Then you're going to kiss me at minute 12:04, and then at 12:04:35, then you're going to do this. Why is it so ecstatic? Why do we enjoy it so much? Why is it so blissful? Why do we want to have that exchange? To connect, obviously, but why is it so blissful? Because we surrender, because we let go. We don't know what's going to happen in the next moment. We're just in sync with each other and just trusting the unfolding, responding to our partners. And the more we let go, the more blissful it is. And that's why when we really have that encounter, it's blissful. So if lovemaking is like that, what would happen if we live life that way? It's like life making. And I think that's the invitation. So we've all had those moments in the love making example. And so I just invite people to just open to that, because it's what we want. Why maybe when we were younger, why did we get drunk and just drink or do drugs? Why? Because when we would,
trying to let go of control.
Yes, we were trying to let go of the control, trying to, I feel looser, I feel more courageous, I feel freer to be myself for a moment. And then we have to do it again and do it again. So what we're seeking is a letting go. What we're seeking is that surrender. And so it's what we want, it's what we want. And so I think we just have to acknowledge that it's the ego, that perceived sense of what we believe ourselves to be, based on beliefs. It's the ego that resists surrender. It's the ego that resists surrender, because surrender for the ego feels like a death, and the ego's job.
Yes, it's what we think we're supposed to hold on to. Yes. So what is the difference then between letting go and surrender?
I'm using letting go sort of synonymously in terms of surrender. But it's the ego that doesn't want to let go. Right. And because the ego's job is to protect you from getting hurt, and also to reinforce its identity and existence. So when you say let go, for the ego, so I can't let go of this old limiting belief that I'm not worthy, because that's who I think I am. And if I'm no longer that, then who am I going to be? And even though feeling and believing I'm unworthy is painful, at least I know the pain that I experience from this. But if I let go of being unworthy and no longer attract relationships that treat me this way, which is comfortable because I know there's a safe zone, and maybe open to the possibility of being well treated, and who knows what might happen, and who knows?
I might get obliterated.
I might get brokenhearted. I might lose control. And so let me just hold on to the sense of who I am, even though it's suffering.
But that value of not knowing, allows us to get comfortable with receiving.
Yes.
So that's the other thing that I speak about a lot, is that availability to receive. So when I'm in meditation, or I'm doing meditation, or leading meditation, it's going into that stillness, not from the place of being passive. To me, it's not passive at all. Yes. It's a very active stance of, I am available to receive. To receive the guidance, to receive the energies, to receive, how life wants to move through me. Does that make?
Surrender is not passive in the way, like people think, surrender me just to what? I just sit there and do nothing. Right. I just sit there, eat some Doritos, and just wait for. No, it is to feel the deepest impulse of what life is seeking to express, to then align with that, and then move into action without attachment. It might mean you work harder than you've ever worked. Yes. Gandhi wasn't lazy. Martin Luther King wasn't lazy. Mandela, they work, maybe workaholics. They work nonstop in sync, and that directed by a force of their soul towards a vision that was bigger than themselves. And so surrender might mean surrendering to the deeper truth of what you're here to do that scares you. It might mean taking the action that scares you. It might mean waking up at 4 a.m. and doing the meditation, even though you don't feel like it. Because sometimes what we kind of, in the spiritual field, what we mistakenly think of as surrender, like, I'm just going to surrender and follow the flow. And whatever happens, happens. And so now, that's not it. Whatever happens, happens. So I just ate 2 tubs of Haagen-Dazs ice cream because I'm surrendering. That's not surrender. That's being lazy.
And that's also personal will.
Yes, that's being controlled, allowing yourself to be controlled by your addictions and biology and limited ego, by the limitations of your mind.
That's personal will versus God's will or life's will.
Exactly. And that's very what I say, because I like that you say personal will versus life's will. Sometimes I tell people, and this is kind of a deeper level sort of concept. The deeper I've gone, because you asked me, well, how did you and what? The deeper I go in my own personal evolution, the more I surrender, the less choice I have.
Yes.
The freer I feel.
Yes.
Whereas when we're in ego, the more choice we think we have, the more limited we are. Because as we grow and evolve, certain things that we used to be able to do and eat and hang out with, it's just no longer in alignment with our vibration and where we're going.
Right.
And that's when we have to say, I could do it and feel terrible. I could do it and not evolve.
And that's
but
choice.
That's a choice. But if I really surrender, we have to now say, I'm not going to do that anymore. No, because now we are surrendering to the deeper intelligence. We're surrendering to the deeper calling that is calling us. That is a deeper commitment. And so you're not just being run by the fleeting mood and feeling of the moment.
Yes.
And that's a thing. So sometimes you won't feel like doing something, but because you're surrendered to the vision, you say, I'm going to do it even though I don't feel like it. I didn't feel like writing my book, just a confession.
I understand that. Yeah.
I never once felt like sitting down writing. I never felt like it, but I made myself, because there was a deeper surrender to having an impact in people's lives, a deeper surrender to the people reading the book and transforming, and the calling I felt. So I was never in the mood. If I just followed my mood, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
And mood is ego. Mood
yes,
is a production of ego. And it strikes me that as we learn how to trust and do that at a deeper and deeper level, it's all about energy. It's all about vibration and frequency. So if a situation that I used to love to do, oh my God, I love to do it. And I might still think, wouldn't that be great? But I go and the frequency of the situation really doesn't feel good. It's like instead of it being here where I am, it's here. And then I have to feel, in a way, go down to that frequency level. And yet, what is it that will support us, our continual evolution?
What is freedom? Many times people say, oh, I want to be free. I'm a free being to do whatever I want, whenever I want, with whoever I want. Is that freedom, or just being a slave to your conditioning?
Yes.
And so I think real freedom is something different. And so I remember having a friend who, she drank alcohol. Wasn't an alcoholic, and nothing wrong with, having a sip if you want, if that's your choice. There's no morality around it. I don't have any. But she realized that as she was evolving, the effects on wine and alcohol in her energy system, there was an effect that she didn't feel great the next day. And that clouded her awareness, her sensitivity, her intuition. It dulled some things that she could not be of the highest frequency of vibration to be of service as a healer. And even though she loved alcohol and loved the taste, she had to surrender and make a choice. This is no longer serving where my soul is going. This is no longer serving the direction my soul is evolving. So I always say the next level of your life will require the next level of you, which will require that you let go of that which is no longer a vibrational match. But the thing is, often we hold on to certain things out of comfort, out of familiarity, out of safety, and we block our evolution and blessing.
And for me, what I've noticed over the years is sometimes something is appropriate and other times it's not. So I really need to be in the moment. Sometimes it's absolutely okay for me to have a glass of wine, because it's a middle of, and I don't mean it from any morality, but from a place of celebration. But if I'm drinking out of something else, when I'm not in a place of celebration, I'm impacted so differently.
Just for the example of my client, it's just that she realized whenever she did it, it just her sensitivity, it just wasn't working. And so I just wanted to give people an example of, like, in this situation, surrender for her was saying no. The deeper freedom for her was in saying no, because her vibration was affected by this thing in a way that it was no longer worth it for her. And that was a freedom. That's part of letting go, and that's part of surrender.
Yeah,
and it's different for everybody.
It's different for everybody, and I've seen people who adopt certain practices, and what happens out of that is they get hooked by the practice, and they don't keep checking in. Okay, is this still what I need?
Yes.
Is there something else?
Right.
So that we are really being fluid with life,
and
with what life is offering to us. So,
Uh-huh.
You have in your book, you have the surrender prayer that I quite loved. And I forgot to ask you before we began whether you have it available or know it off the top of your head, and whether you might be open to saying it. But I think
anyway, I could
well,
say
no. What I was going to say is, if it's there, great. But if not, I would love to add it into the show notes, because it is really quite beautiful, and and your book is really quite beautiful. It's powerful. It's useful. And I think it will change a lot of lives.
It was not the book I wanted to write. It was not the book I thought, and so this just proves the point.
I understand that.
It was not the book I thought I was going to write. I sat down one day and I thought I would be smart, because my first book was a national bestseller, and I thought, I want to create a mega national bestseller.
Right.
I started writing all of these fancy ideas on a whiteboard, and brilliant ideas. Maybe one day I'll do them, but none of them felt authentic. Yeah. None of them felt true. None of them felt in alignment. I mean, I could lie to myself and pretend, but none of them felt that way.
And they'd be good from an intellectual standpoint.
It was from the ego and the mind.
Yeah.
Brilliant ideas, but it wasn't aligned.
Yeah.
And the only word on that whiteboard that felt a energy, you said energy, energy to it, a resonance, was surrender. And that's when I thought, oh no, I don't know if I want to write about surrender, because there's misconceptions about surrender.
I have to surrender to surrender.
And so I had to surrender to the book about surrender.
Yes.
And that's when I felt like the book had a soul of its own. And I could, if I was honest, I could feel the flow. I could feel the vibe. I could feel the energy. And that's when I had to just let go and say, I'm going to trust it, and so, yes.
And that's helpful to me on so many levels, because I have a book that I almost finished quite a while ago, sitting on my computer, and it's like, okay, now I've been told, the energies have said, you need to finish that. And I know, or at least I have a feeling, that as I get back into it, it's going to change completely.
Yes.
And it's okay.
Yes.
That moment of where, oh no, I really don't want to do that. And okay, I will.
Yeah.
So Kute, this, I want to keep going because there's more I want to ask you about. However, tell people how they can find you and what's coming up for you.
Yeah. Depending on people listen to the conversation, let's see, people can definitely get the book, The Magic of Surrender. Just go to Amazon, get the paperback version because it's updated. For those that maybe are inspired by the conversation and you feel ready for your next level in a real life experience, because it's one thing to read, but another thing to go through a process. Twice a year, I do a very special event to Bali. It's a 12-day immersion seminar training that I take people through a really profound experience that gives you an experience of surrendering and sort of clearing away the layers of conditioning, helping you connect to your authentic nature and catapulting you forward in the world to live your purpose. And so one is, I guess, depending on people listen, the next event is December the 5th through the 16th. Okay. And this will be my last event that I'll ever do of this kind of event. I've done for the last 10 years, I've done 20 of these events to Bali. It's called Boundless Bliss, the Bali Breakthrough Experience. People can go to www.boundlessblissbali.com. That's boundlessblissbali.com. If people want to find out more about my work, just go to my main website, Kute, Kute, KuteBlackson.com. They can find out more there. And Instagram, say hi. I'm very active on there. Facebook, say hello. Kute Love Now on Facebook. Great.
I love it. And I love also that you're saying this is the last one of this, because I as I've moved through my life for so many years, it's been I can't do this anymore, and I don't know what's next. And it's that in-between place of being willing to be in the void, and not knowing. You haven't said you don't know what's next, but
yeah, I mean, we're in the creation of what's next right now. So
okay,
a lot is about to emerge and be shared with the world.
I bet. Okay. Thank you so much for being
Thank you.
here and for your presence and your willingness to share yourself.
Thank you.
And thank you to our listening and our viewing audience for being here with us live today at Wisdom Talk Radio. Join us here regularly for more wisdom, discovery, and illumination. And remember, you can find us on your favorite place to listen to podcasts or watch us on YouTube. And here's a request and ask. If you've enjoyed listening today, please leave us a review, because when you do, that allows more people to access this kind of wisdom. And ultimately, this is what helps to transform the world. And for more about how to thrive with your personal quantum connection, take the Quantum Connection quiz now. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us here at Wisdom Talk Radio. We wish you well in your conscious explorations. For more information and to join in the conversation, our website is wisdomtalkradio.com or at Wisdom Talk Radio on Facebook.